Hello and welcome to Out the Gate. This is where you'll get all the intel you need for this weekend's racing in 30 minutes or less, highlighted by the Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes at Flemington. I'm your host, Alex Donnelly. As always, I'm joined by a man fresh off tipping up a storm at the Valley last week. The track was on fire and so was he. It's Gil Gardiner. Hello, Gil.
Morning, Alex. Yeah, we got a bit lucky there with a couple of them. Missed a few as well. Geez, there was a nice multi there in the middle of the card that probably everyone should have had, but we didn't. But anyway, here we are.
It's always you're as good as your last tip. You tipped 2 winners last weekend, so we'll keep rolling. And speaking in that way, Mitch Cohen, he was super keen on Chow Wolf. I think he's out the front at the moment at the Daily Telegraph looking for some ramen noodles. But this week, the joint has been absolutely classed up. We are joined by Ray Thomas, who is looking resplendent up in Sydney. Good morning, Ray.
Hey, good morning, Alex. Good morning, Gilbert. Yeah, look, Mitch is a scratching this week for his legion of fans. He'll be back next week, but hope we can find a winner or two on what's going to be, unfortunately, a very wet Rosehill on Saturday.
I do like it. Mitch talked up the weather last week, talked up how good it was, the fields everywhere, and then it starts raining in Sydney and he's nowhere to be found.
Well, it's very Sydney-like, isn't it, Ray? Now, I don't want to cast aspersions on you, but Mitch, of course, owes me a nice bottle of wine there. Yeah. I had a tip for New York Luster to run. I wanted top 5. Mitch said not top 10. He gave me top 7. And the little Bonnie mare got into 7, just scraped into 7. So now I realise why he's not here. He doesn't want to pay up. But anyway, Melbourne, 1 up on Sydney already.
Yeah, I was about to say, Gilbert, I hope he has paid up. But look, I know Mitchie likes to have a little dig at you guys from time to time about Melbourne's weather, but I won't be doing that this week, boys, because I know we'll talk about the tracks very shortly, but we've had another very heavy downpour overnight in Sydney. We're back to a heavy 10 for Rosehill on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll quickly touch on that. 40 to 50 mils overnight at Rosehill. The rails in the 6 metre position, they are on a heavy 10. And I was about to say, Ray, please do not cast me as a Melburnian. You've known my father for 30 years. Yeah. I am definitely not a Melburnian. But the main race this weekend is the Makybe Diva at Flemington. So we'll talk about that race there where they are on a true rail. The track at the moment, soft 5, but again, it will be perfect with a little bit of a downpour that we have at the moment. Before we get started, make sure you follow Racenet on YouTube. Hit that notifications button so you do get a notification anytime that we do a video, as well as subscribing and liking all of the videos we do, as well as Racenet tweets on X, Facebook, and Instagram, which is at Racenet. And I believe we have the podcast available, so go find the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. But let's get out the gate. The Makybe Diva is the feature this week. And what we're going to do first, obviously, small but select field, Gil, and we'll take a look at the speed map brought to you by Racenet IQ. Make sure you do check out Racenet IQ, subscribe for all the information available to you. Has Mr Brightside leading this, but the wild card in this is Antino because Blake Shin could do just about anything he wants, whereas Via Sistina and Aeliana probably find their feet. Tom Kitten has to jump, and Mark Twain will be last.
Well, I got this well and truly wrong last week, didn't I? But this week I agree with that speed map. I think the way that Brightside can win is if he dictates this race, he'll go forward. I think Antino's best work we've seen has been when he's been ridden quietly and comes on that big surging run. So I don't think they want to be the bunning. And obviously, Brightside would love it. Craig Williams will have the invitation out to Blake. Please go and lead. Yeah. Give me something to sort of trot up behind and then finish over the top of late. I'd be wary of Antino leading. As you said, Via Sistina and Aeliana will not be anywhere up there in the firing line, I wouldn't have thought. Mark Twain's probably going to need 2 laps of the course to try and get warm, and we're just hoping Tom Kitten can get out the gate.
Yeah, we do. We're going to take a look at a couple of replays, first of which being the Memsey Stakes, where we do see Antino and Mr Brightside finishing off quite well. So we'll go to that replay now, have a look there. You can see Mr Brightside just starting to loom up in a 3-wide position as we roll the tape. Antino is making a wide run, but what doesn't show on this is Antino did a lot of work between the 1,000 and the 600 getting into the race.
Yeah, look, absolutely. They both ran really well. And you look at Treasure of the Moment. I mean, she had the most luxurious run, and it was beautiful to watch. And what a shame it is that we won't see her this Saturday. Hopefully, we can see her back at the races very soon. I heard Matt Laurie suggest that maybe the Fian on grand final leave could be an option. And how good is that card? We won't digress out of the Flemington card, but that grand final leave race card, they've been so well placed, the Valley, and they always seem to get nice horses there. We had Imperatrice there a couple of years ago. Anyway, treasure of the moment, heading hopefully towards the Fian. But Mr Brightside's run I thought was super, and Antino did a lot of work. This will be a race that we'll keep referring back to the entire spring.
So, and what we'll do is obviously the main lead up for this race, given the betting market, is the Winx Stakes in Sydney. Chris Waller, when treasure of the moment was removed from this race, quickly had her on the truck down here to Melbourne. They're rolling around the turn, and Ray, probably the most important part out of this race is that Via Sistina won the race between the 6 and the 400.
Yeah, a brilliant piece of James McDonald riding, because at the 600 he was sort of back in the ruck and horses all around him. By the home turn they fanned wide, got a dream run through, not dissimilar to treasure of the moment in the Memsey, and then her strength came into play because Aeliana made a race of it with Via Sistina. She's the type of mare who responds to pressure and tempo, which is what makes Saturday's race so intriguing for me, boys. If Mr Brightside leads and dictates, makes it a sprint home, then that could be the Achilles heel for Via Sistina. But if Antino takes off mid-race and puts the pressure on, that'll suit her. So it's a real tactical battle of Makybe Diva. But what we know about Via Sistina is when the pressure is on, she finds. She started to draw away again from Aeliana late, but I thought Aeliana's run was terrific first up. She made up many lengths on Via Sistina, just faded the last bit. And Gilbert, I know you've been speaking to Chris Waller this week, but he sort of already said that Aeliana's his next top horse in 12 months' time. Whether she's quite there yet, the stable don't know. They don't know how good she is, but they know how good Via Sistina is, and this is going to be an epic clash on Saturday in the Makybe Diva.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's exactly what Chris suggested yesterday at Flemington when he watched Aeliana sort of trot up there, had a bit of a look around. Of course, she's won at Flemington before, won a 1,600-metre race there last spring. We saw what she did in the autumn, and you can just see that twinkle in the eye, can't you, Ray? He, like, for someone that's got so many great horses and has seen so many great horses, he's not quite sure how good this mare can be. And he sort of said yesterday he's not worried about Via Sistina. He knows what she's going to do, and it's whether the others can sort of match it up. And it'll be very interesting. I just wonder whether, obviously, the extra distance will help Aeliana on Saturday at Flemington. I just wonder whether she wants it a little bit further. Is she more of a 2,000 metre plus operator, or is she going to be caught for a bit short for speed on Saturday?
It'd be interesting, Gilbert, but think back to that Carbine Club win back in the spring. She was awesome over the Flemington Mile. Second up last spring, Via Sistina was beaten in this race, but the track conditions were the determining factor that day. Chris Waller's referred to that track as being slippery. Gilbert, you would have been there and you would know what he's talking about. And she just didn't stretch out, but we know she handles wet tracks. She got through a heavy 10 last start. So the track won't be anywhere near that bad on Saturday, obviously, at Flemington. And the mile second up, she's such a great mare. She's done it before, and she's the deserved favourite for the Makybe Diva.
Who wins it, Gilbert?
Well, I've got to stick to the tried and true Victorian flavour, Mr Brightside. He's won it the last 2 years. Arguably, that was his best win last spring, or probably in the last 12 months at Makybe Diva. He ran down Pride of Jenny.
Yep.
It was a super run, and he had so much pressure, and not dissimilar to this campaign. First up, he got nutted first up, and he had to work really hard. And had to chase Jenny, and she was still sort of quote unquote airborne at the time. And just went and ran her down. And as you said, Via Sistina obviously just didn't let down at all on that slippery, sort of icy sort of surface that Flemington had. There was a hailstorm basically the race before, and then I think it rained again sort of in the lead up to the race. The race was actually run in splendid sunshine, typical Melbourne, but the track I think was certainly impacted. But I've got to stick with Mr Brightside. He's won at the last 2 starts, and I thought that Memsey, outside of Treasure of the Moment, had the cushiest run.
Yep.
I thought Brightside's runs was super. He worked the whole way. We kept punching late. If you flip those runs, Brightside wins the Memsey Stakes, and he's probably half the price that he is. Obviously, the Sydney horses are the ones to beat. Via Sistina is the benchmark, we know. But over 1,600 metres, I'm happy to take Brightside. Yep. If it's 2,000 metre race, all hands to Via Sistina. But 1,600 Flemington, and we're getting a little bit of rain, which is exactly what Mr B wants.
Yeah. Ray, which way are you leaning?
I'll stick with the champ, Via Sistina. I've got a lot of respect for Mr Brightside, and tactically this plays into his hands. It's an old-fashioned weight-for-age battle of tactics, this. As I said, it's going to be fascinating to watch. But Via Sistina, we know she's a champion, and she'll be very, very hard to beat. I thought her Wink Stakes run was as good as she's ever gone first up. Aeliana, gee, she's got the X factor about her. We've spoken about her earlier, and where she'll probably be behind Via Sistina in the run, I'd say, but we know she can let down, and she is a very, very good mare in the making. And Mr Brightside, what an old marvel he is, and he'll be up on speed making his own luck. And as Gilbert said, he's so good over the Flemington Mile. He was terrific in this race last year. Great contest, but I'll stick with the champ Via Sistina, but all eyes watching the Makybe Diva and just what the jockeys do and how it unfolds.
I know Damien Lane disappointed that Treasure of the Moment had the colic attack this week, but at the same time quite happy because he's still got the ride on Aeliana. Obviously rode her to the Group 1 victory in the Oaks. And I bet you he's probably getting to Chris Wallace. He's like, gee, she'd make a good Caulfield Cup horse, Chris, I tell you what.
No doubt. No, he's had a great spring, or great 12 months, hasn't he, Damien Lane, and especially his connection there with Treasure of the Moment. I'm not quite. I mean, what a nice choice to have between those two mares.
The feature race in Sydney, Theo Marks Stakes, 1,300 metres. I think this race may get taken apart, scratchings a little bit. But Ray, your best bet comes up in, not your best bet, but one of your better bets on the day with Autumn Glow coming up in this.
Yeah, she's going to be very short, Alex, but deservedly so. She's into about $1.55 in the latest betting. But if you look at Autumn Glow, 5 starts, 5 wins, and we use that cliche, we don't know how good she is yet because I don't think she's ever really been tested. And even first up, Gangster Granny gave her a great race, but you always had the impression that Autumn Glow had Gangster Granny covered, and she drew clear late to win convincingly. The significant factor that day was the heavy 10, and she got through it well first up. Steps up to 1,300, more sort of in her wheelhouse, I think. She's heading towards the Epsom Path, where she's already a $2.30 favourite. $11 the field, Alex and Gilbert, except for Autumn Glow for an Everest. That's the sort of reputation she's got because she hasn't even raced in a Group 1 race as yet, but just such a gifted racehorse, and the key to her on Saturday, the barrier draw, she's drawn perfectly. Karen McAvoy goes on, of course, James, the regular rider in Melbourne for Via Sistina. Karen has ridden Autumn Glow before, rode her in the up-and-coming stakes over the Rosehill 1,300 last season where she won convincingly. She is a very, very exciting racehorse. $1.55 rock bottom odds, but how can you tip against her? And she should just win, barring bad luck in running, Alex.
Winning this, obviously going to the Epsom at her next start. Given the weight scale of the Epsom, as it is a handicap, do we know if she's going to get James McDonald's weight, given she's not highly rated yet, given she's only won those couple of group races so far?
At this stage, I think they're factoring in more Karen McAvoy's weight. So Karen will obviously probably keep the ride. If she doesn't get 54.5, 55, I don't think she will, Alex. I dare say it'd be Karen McAvoy retaining the ride come the Epsom. But just talking to connections, just a little curveball here. If she comes out on Saturday and again looks really sharp and sprints brilliantly, look, the Everest is maybe a 10% chance because there has been slot holder interest in Autumn Glow. But Chris Waller's already got Jolie Star in the Everest. He'll probably get Lady Shenandoah in the Everest very shortly. There's a horse called Woden running on Saturday who could be Coolmore's choice. So he's got 2 or 3 horses already there. Gilbert's horse, Angel Capital, who was so good last Saturday, he's suddenly in the mix as well. So he's got a wealth of potential Everest runners. So all things being equal, we'll see Autumn Glow go from the Theo Marks into the Epsom, which is a traditional lead-up. And I think when she gets to that Randwick Mile, that's going to be so perfect for her. But we'll get through Saturday first. The only little negative now is this weather, but at least she got through it at Randwick at a first up run, and she'll be fitter again for Saturday.
Yeah, if I'm Chris Waller, it's Theo Marks, Epsom, King George, Golden Eagle. Stay out of the way. She's a miler. Just run. She's by the autumn sun. Run her over a mile.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll just sort of stick to the wet tracker. If I had to have a go at throw at the stumps here, Ray, the Kiwi horse Pier. Obviously, sounds like he's got Kiwi conditions, and we might need a few boats down there at the races. So appear would be a nice omen bet.
He's certainly at decent odds, about $9.50, almost $10, Gilbert. So look, if the $1.55 is too short for most of us, if you want to look for some value and just have a throw at the stumps, as you suggest, certainly Peer comes into calculations. I know my colleague Ron Dufficy is keen on Peer, not to beat Autumn Glow, but to run very well for that very reason that you raised, Gilbert, the wet track. Good New Zealander, first up, he'll run well, but as I said, it just can't tip against Autumn Glow.
We'll get to your best bet this weekend. Gil comes up in one of the more important races that does help shape the spring. It is the Lexus Archer Stakes. It is winning you into the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I tell you what, I had a hard time going through these fields to find a few best bets. There's so many good races there on Saturday. But Revelare, it's sort of half cheering for the story, I think, as well. Rob Hickmott, wouldn't it be great to qualify this horse? Burst onto the scene last summer. I think ran okay first up, then won five in a row. And, in February, March, they were sort of saying, this could be a Melbourne Cup horse. And, obviously a lot can go wrong between February and March and the first Tuesday in November. But here we are, Revelare, first up, good, decent run. Then second up, really tenacious win. And looks to be going in the right direction. 2,500 metres is probably the query. We've not seen him go to 2,500 metres before, so he's only gone up to 2,000. So there's a bit more ground there to make up. But dual Melbourne Cup winning trainer Rob Hickmott, there's couldn't be in better hands. I think you're getting a reasonable price at $3. I'd be wary of Bur Dubai. Seems, again, one of these ones that sort of has to step up. He's been running in sort of benchmark grades, but the big tick for Bur Dubai is that it has run over 2,500 metres here in Australia and abroad. So, it's an interesting race. It's obviously got the Melbourne Cup golden ticket, and it's so important. And, I'd just like to see Revelare. I think it'd just be nice to qualify, a bona fide sort of Australian connections in the Melbourne Cup. So I'm siding with him. And a great story in today's Herald Sun, Ryan Hurdle, of course, has done all the work or a lot of the riding on Revelare. He's ridden the horse, I think, 6 times for 5 wins or something along those lines. And the reality back in February and March was that if this horse does get into a Melbourne Cup, poor old Ryan's not going to be able to ride him. He's going to get 51 kilos or thereabouts. Spoke to Ryan the other day, and he hasn't ridden lighter than 54 in about 10 years. So he sort of knew what was coming. And now we're at the pointy end, the connections and the trainer, and they want a jockey that can stick with the horse if things sort of work out the way they wish. But the nice part is that Ryan's sort of essentially been enlisted as the main track gallop rider, and he's sort of been kept part of it. And they've sort of promised him that if there's a race that he could ride in, they'll reward him with that. So I think it's just a nice teamwork, I guess, and that's what it takes, a team to get to the Melbourne Cup.
Hope he gets a clip of the ticket if they win the Melbourne Cup.
Absolutely.
Too. Just another 2% of the prize money there.
A little
thanks,
sling,
boys.
yeah, no doubt.
Ray, your best bet up in Sydney comes up in race 4 as a horse who was really strong sectionally last start.
Race 4, number 11, Sevens, Alex. I really like this horse. He was terrific first up at Canterbury over 1550. Came back a fraction in trip last start to the 1500. And as you said, he had the flashing light on him. We'll have a heavy track, as we know, on Saturday. I dare say it'll improve, boys. Maybe I was talking to stewards early before going on air, and they're sort of banking on a track, maybe getting back into the soft 7, maybe heavy 8 range. That's ideal for Sevens. He's down in the weights. Braithnock can't claim, but Braithnock is Sydney's reigning champion apprentice. He'll ride Sevens at 53, stepping up to 1,800 metres. He's lightly raced import, trained by Annabelle and Rob Archibald. He's got a future, this horse, and I think from here we might see him, if he can win on Saturday, go into some better races. He's certainly a strong horse with a powerful finish, and getting to that 1,800 metres on Saturday, ideal. Race 4, number 11, Sevens, I think better the day at Rosehill.
Ooh, I love the keenness there. Gil, your next best, a horse that you were keen on first up, who in its last run at Morfordville ran the third best last 400 metres of the day, but has a sticky barrier.
Yeah, Splashback. This is the race.
Yep,
she just wins. Put a line, put a line through Adelaide. Happy to put a line through that.
Yeah,
did a lot of work there and just didn't work out. But this is the one, 1,400 metres, Flemington. I am not silly enough to judge. Graham Begg knows what he's doing.
Yep,
and he has got this mare going great guns. She's won 3 of 5 at 1,400. She's a track and distance winner. And yes, she's got a sticky barrier, but that's okay. She'll go back, she'll smoke the pipe, and she'll finish up over the top of them late. So that's the win. Although I will say that Chris, speaking to Chris yesterday at Flemington, now we saw Aeliana sort of trot up on her own sort of in the gallop, and there was this other mare at the back about 150 metres behind Aeliana sort of doing her own work, and that was Lazura. And you just sort of that glint in Chris's eye. He sort of said that, she's obviously going to run really well. So I am very respectful of that. And how would you be, Ray? You got a Group 2 winning mare, Lazura, and she's probably not in your top
seven?
6, top 7, top 8 mares in the stable, and she's a genuine, proper horse, won 4 races, including a Group 2. So you got to be respectful of her.
Yeah, you have to, Gilbert. And I was going to mention Lazura because she's a little bit underrated and sort of off the radar because there's so many high-profile mares in the Chris Waller stable. But she is very, very good, and her first up win was outstanding. You'll see a pretty good mare there on Saturday, Lazura. I think she'll be winning.
There we go. That feels like a coffee bet in between. I know you haven't been paid your wine yet, but that feels another head-to-head
yes.
there. But your next best, right? A horse who was really good last start on the wet track behind Autumn Glow, and we've already mentioned her, Gangster Granny. Granny, shall we say.
That's it, Gangster Granny. In the toy show, she made Autumn Glow work. Look, I did say earlier that I always felt that Autumn Glow had Gangster Granny covered, but take nothing away from the runner-up, and she's a really good underrated mare. Team Hawkes trained. Significantly, she's taking on a pretty good field here in the Shirako, and obviously Jolie Star, who yesterday was confirmed as an Everest runner, is the $2.30 favourite. But Gangster Granny at $3.40 has that race fitness edge. She handles wet tracks. She makes her own luck riding the speed. She carries 54, gets 5 kilos off Jolie Star. I can't see this race being run at a high at tempo, at solid pressure. So I think that suits Gangster Granny with her lightweight and her ability to handle heavy tracks and that race fitness edge. She was so good in the toy show. I think Gangster Granny is a mare on the rise. Race 7, number 8, Gangster Granny, the second best on the day, albeit against the likes of Shirako, Jolie Star and Steffi Magnetica in the Shirako. But I think Gangster Granny has a big race win in her this spring, and Saturday Shirako will be her launching pad into better races come the spring.
Just with that, so Jolie Star on Wednesday night announced as Chris Waller's runner in the Everest. I personally found that a little bit surprising given we haven't seen her run this spring as of yet. Is there a chance, given the wet track, that Chris may pull her out because she's never run on a heavy track before, and we know how cautious Chris is, given that this isn't the grand final? It could potentially flatten her if it's a severely wet track.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Alex, and watch this space because there is obviously suitable races coming up as early as next week, the shorts, albeit back to 1100. The weather forecast from later today onwards is much better, so we'll get a much better track come Randwick. So that's a really good point you raise. Is it worth rolling the dice on a heavy first up with Jolie Star? I'm not too sure now. You've got me thinking. As soon as we finish this, the first phone call I'll be making, Alex, is to the Chris Waller stable to see whether that's even in their thinking. As I mentioned earlier, of course, they've got others heading towards the Everest, like Lady Shenandoah, who'll probably run next week in the short. So he probably wants to keep those two mares apart, but this heavy track would certainly have him at least having second thoughts about running on Saturday.
Gil, your value bet this weekend ran on really well last start and had to cop a slowdown between the 600 and 400. Probably cost it finishing closer.
That's right, Robrick. I think
he's an old mate for a lot of us.
I think he's a little sneaky chance, and he gets to his pet track. 3 starts at Flemington for a win in 2 seconds. Always races well there. Look, nice run first up at the Valley, but leader-dominated race. Just never got into the picture. Red Hot Nick just sort of scampered along and had them all strung out. Robrick was out the back, had to work and get in and got held up and finally sort of got a little bit of clear air, the last probably 100 metres and sort of came through the line nicely. It just looked like a sneaky nice run there. And I think second up at Flemington, where we know he goes well, he's been runner-up twice, second up previously in 3 starts. Drawn nicely, drawn to get a nice sort of cushy little run there, and we'll just need a little bit of luck. Yep. You always get luck at Flemington. Nice big open track there. But I would have probably liked him a little bit further off the rail, not to have to sort of get a pogo stick out or something to sort of get into clear air because he does need a bit of that momentum. So anyway, at best part of $20, I'm happy to have a little nibble there at each way odds.
And Ray, yours kicks us off in the day. Race number 1. A horse that was good on a wet track at its last start is first up here, but ran in some good races last prep.
Yeah, race 1, number 6, Modella, Alex. And I was hoping to get a little bit better. She's into about $5 now. That's rock bottom odds, but she's still valued. This is a promising mare, and as you mentioned, she's only won a Kembla Grange maiden from her 5 starts, but she was tested at Group 3 level twice in the autumn, ran terrific races in the James Carr and the Hawkesbury Guineas. Her 2 trials leading into her comeback race on Saturday have been eye-catching. You won't miss this mare. She's a big, strong mare with a white baldy face. She gets back in the field, so I don't mind the fact that she's drawn the car park, so to speak, for the opener. She'll settle back, go wide, watch her unleash. This is a mare with a lot of talent. Only had the 5 race starts, and as I mentioned, just that 1 win. But follow her this spring. She's in for a big prep. I think we should get on in the first and get a bank for the day, boys. Race 1, number 6, Modella.
Just going to slide that one into the black book to kick off.
Yes. And have something on Duck Egg Blue too, Ray. Jason Collett. I love betting in a midway and a highway. That's my little heat check on a Saturday. People in the Melbourne press room know I like to have just a little flutter in either the midway or the highway just to get a feel of how I'm going for the day. And Jay Collett on a wet track in a midway or a highway, I'm all
Back
over
to last
that.
up the fence.
I'm all over that at $13. So maybe that's a little Quinella for us, Ray.
Yeah, well, Corey Brown, who's a great judge and a former champion jockey, believes Jason Collett's the best wet track rider in Australia, and he's a great patient rider, isn't he? The thing about the midways and the highways, Alex, invariably they're big fields. They generate tempo. Need a bit of luck sometimes because of those big fields, but you always get value. So I don't mind that Quinella Modella into Duck Egg Blue.
And also, like, given we're mentioning highways and that, all the Kosciuszko slots announced yesterday, I have a horse available if anyone wants to give me a call. My dad's actually in Ireland right now, so I'll take the phone call.
Jeez.
It's a $2 million race, mate. I want to get a run. Speaking of needing $2 million, let's talk about the Quaddie this weekend, Gil. $100 will get you 52% this week, but run us through it.
So the first leg, race 7, 3, 4, 7 and 12. The second leg, we've skinnied that up a bit, 1, 5 and 6. 3, 5, 7 and 11 in the third leg, and we'll come home with 1, 4, 12 and 15. As I said, a bit of a tricky day there on Saturday, but I think there's a few winners to be had.
And Ray, your Quaddie numbers, funnily enough, we have the exact same combinations up at Rosehill.
Okay, we'll start in race 7, the Shirako, numbers 2, 7 and 8. I'm leaving out Steffi Magnetica because first up wet track, she invariably needs a run or two, but in that first leg, 2, 7 and 8. Into race 8, the Run to the Rose. What a race this is. Numbers 1, 5, 6 and 10. Down to race 9, the Theo Marks, numbers 1, 4, 5 and 8. That's Autumn Glow's race. And in the last, another tough closer at Rosehill, race 10, numbers 4, 5, 11 and 12.
I like it. Gil, I just got to quickly ask you, Devil Knight's running this weekend. Will you be returning to the scene of the crime?
Will do, yes.
Yeah.
I think he's dual is he dual accepted? I'm pretty sure he's up in Sydney as well. But I think we've got the better track down here. Won't go on a wet track, but I'll stick with him and we'll make our money back.
Well, he's got J-Mac on in Melbourne, so
Yes.
that's probably a pretty good steer.
Yeah, well, if it sticks to a good 4, he's the one for me.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the news that's going on this weekend. So, Gil, start us off here in Melbourne. Obviously, Group 1 racing this weekend, but a lot of horses looking towards the future in the spring as well. But what's going on?
Yeah, no doubt. It's had a good chat to Sam Friedman around Tom Kitten. Obviously, he's a bit of that X-Factor runner there in the Makybe Diva and the work that's gone into trying to get him to, he's not, apparently up in Sydney, they were mindful of him. So he always had the sort of ability to go off, I suppose, or he was sort of on the borderline there and has by and large been okay. What happened in the Memsie, a horse, a couple of gates across kicked out, and that was just enough to flick the switch, and he lunged forward, and the rest is history. They had a little trial the other day. That didn't also go to plan. Benny Mellum, I don't think, was in the saddle when the gates opened, so almost threw the rider there
Don't
as
know
well.
how he was passed.
So anyway, but look, he's worked well. So we've had a bit of a chat there with Sam Friedman. My colleague Brad Waters has also spoken to Lucy Yeomans, who has her first runner in her own name, I suppose. So she was training with Lloyd Kennewell in partnership there for a little while, and now she's gone out on her own. So she's got her first runner in a Group 2 at Flemington.
Must be nice.
On Saturday, Jenny the Fox. Yeah, so anyway, that's a nice little story there. And also we've got one of a Derby qualified horse. Brad's also spoken to the Busselton Young camp for Arcora. Now, he's in the Exford. He is qualified for the Derby, so I wouldn't, obviously they're working backwards from Derby Day, so I wouldn't be piling into the odds just yet. But anyway, be interested to see how that horse goes. It's nice these winning you're in, similar with the Archer and all the Cup ones. It's good when you have those winners that they actually keep progressing and hopefully get to the grand final.
Just quickly talking about the Exford, is this almost a D-Day for Vinrock? He surely just has to win this race.
Yeah, look, I'd say so. I mean, I think the good track will sort of help him.
Yep.
I was surprised they didn't go up to Sydney. I think the initial plan was to go and run in that, what's it called? Run to the Rose. I'm not sure whether the weather has sort of changed things around. I thought he ran okay first up, short of his best ground.
Yep.
So I'm expecting a decent rebound.
Yep. And Ray, up in Sydney, a fair bit going on. You've had a chat to Karen McAvoy, but there's also some news around Jolie Star, Steffi Magnetica, and all the 3-year-olds.
Yeah, it's a cracking meeting, and just hope that track continues to improve. Karen McAvoy, I've dubbed him the Peter Pan of Australian racing. Gilbert and Alex, I've known Karen since he won the Melbourne Cup on Brew 25 years ago. It's hard to believe, but the man never ages. He's still got his hair. He still looks as youthful as ever, and he's still riding as well as ever. He turns 45 next month. He has that hunger and desire for more Group 1s. He'll be partnering Autumn Glow, obviously, on Saturday, amongst others, including Skyhook in the Run to the Rose. So we've had a good interview with Karen McAvoy for tomorrow's Daily Telegraph. Mitch Cohen has spoken to Gerald Ryan about Skyhook and King of Pop. They're lining up in the Run to the Rose, which is such an important lead up into the Golden Rose. And for Saturday, I've gone through the Run to the Rose field, boys, and this is the strongest Run to the Rose I can recall. It is an outstanding race and may have been the reason that they decided to keep Vinrock in Melbourne, just to get him going, get some confidence going into the Golden Rose, for example, because this is a cracking race, full field. A lot of the best 2-year-olds from last season, including Nepotism, are lining up in this Run to the Rose. Quick stat, boys, the last 4 years, Godolphin has won the Run to the Rose with Animo, In Secret, Cylinder and Traffic Warden last year. All 4 then ran second in the Golden Rose. So this is a really important lead up to the Golden Rose in 2 weeks. The best Run of the Rose I can ever recall.
It's a good race. My favourite Run to the Rose winner, Exosphere. God bless him. Then let me down every other start from then on in. But just a quick summary of this weekend. Before we do get to that, of course, make sure you do check out the Daily Telegraph, Racenet and the Herald Sun for all the breaking news from all the journalists across the country. Of course, Ben Dorries put out the story last night about Jolie Star in the Everest. A bit of stuff going on with Chris Muntz at the moment as well. A nice story coming out about him too from Daniel up in Queensland. So make sure you do check out the Herald Sun, Racenet and the Daily Telegraph for all of your racing news. But just recapping the boys' tips this weekend in the Group 1, Gil is with Mr Brightside, Ray is with Via Sistina. For Gil's best plays in Melbourne, his best bet is Revelare. Next best, Splashback. Apparently just get on and get into it. Roderick, the value play. For Ray up in Sydney, is very keen on 7s. Gangster Granny to beat the well-established mares, and the value play to kick off the day is Modella. Now make sure you do follow us all on social media. It is at Racenet Tweets, as well as following Gilbert and Mitch across their social media platforms as well as liking and subscribing on YouTube. So every time we do a video, it does pop up in your feed. A lot of videos going on at the moment. Of course, the World Pool in action at Flemington this weekend for 3 of the races as well. So there will be a World Pool preview this week, including Irish Champions Day this weekend up in Leopardstown. But Gil, thank you. Big week.
No worries. Hopefully we can find some winners on Saturday.
And Ray, thanks to you for stepping in today.
Thanks so much, boys. Great weekend of racing coming up, and Mitchie will be back next week.
Can't wait for this weekend. Of course, shout out to the team behind the scenes here at Racenet. Make sure you do check out all the shows. Holder tickets will be going up with Campbell, Brown, Lammy and Marcus later this afternoon as well. But we are done and dusted this week on Out the Gate. Good luck if you're having a bet next week or this weekend, and we'll catch you next week on Out the Gate.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.